I understood early on that every single decision I was going to make was going to have a consequence, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. But every decision it's going to have a consequence, no matter what it is. If I make a decision to pick up this phone, the consequence is that the phone is in my hand. If I make a decision to put the phone down, the consequence is the phone is put down on top of this table. So every decision you make has a consequence. So I started to realize that at an early age. I started to analyze every single potential consequence so that I could try to find a way to avert situations that were coming at me in that low-level matrix, in that low-frequency area. And I was able to weave my way out of there, through that kind of thinking. And I really, just going off of this quote, really, kind of really extrapolating on it, but it's a lot of the unseen things that are going on that you don't realize that you're enabling or activating. A lot of us are activating and enabling a lot of things in our life without even realizing. These are the unseen things, unseen thoughts that you don't realize that are occurring every single moment that you are alive, every breath you take. Right now we're breathing in and we're breathing out, but we're not acknowledging the fact that we're breathing in and breathing out because it's an involuntary, action, supposedly, something that just happens. But when you begin to think about breathing in and breathing out, you realize that you're both connected to something and disconnected from something simultaneously. So these are the things that, we have to become more mindful of every single thing that we get involved with, everything that we do, everything that we think. And through that method, you can navigate through this matrix a lot easier. So we're going to talk real briefly about the Osirian initiation. The great work of the ancient mysteries, and hence the philosophic initiation, was and still is for the seeker to provide, to prove himself the truth of these teachings in the analysis of the Egyptian mysteries. By the light of our arcane knowledge, we find that the cornerstone of knowledge, which was actually a wisdom gained through initiation, had its foundation in certainty that the first great cause of existence itself was spirit. That this first and only element was the soul, and that this soul existed eternally and filled infinity. So basically, this is saying that all that really truly does exist is spirit, which is a form of consciousness, a variation of consciousness. That's all that really is here. So I'm up here talking to you guys, but I'm really centered up here talking to myself. Okay? And vice versa. When you're talking to somebody, you're talking to yourself. There's only one consciousness that exists, but if you can imagine a giant orb somewhere up in the top of the universe, for example, or whatever that means to you, and then imagine trillions and trillions of fingers coming out of it, almost like a gigantic octopus with unlimited amounts of legs. Each one of those legs is a piece of that same one soul, one piece, one consciousness that's now separated itself and decided to come down into the formation of an avatar body like this and inhabit it for the purpose of experiencing life subjectively from this perspective. Every single one of us is downloading consciousness into our avatar bodies, and we are literally receiving a consistent stream of that on a daily basis. Every single moment of your life, 24 hours a day, you're receiving. The brain does not create consciousness, it downloads it. Okay, the brain downloads consciousness. He who refuses to obey this law will be destroyed in the order of creation. The fiery particles of matter ascended. It was written that heaven is above to form the luminous bodies. The heavier bodies descended and ultimately separated into earth, seas, plants, animals, and finally into the entities which became men. This is the earth plane, is what we know as hell, or the temporal, not temporary, but temporal, meaning encased in time. The ever-changing and constantly suffering plane of existence. It is below into which souls fall to gain wisdom and understanding by experiencing both joy and suffering from the eternal or cosmic. The soul preceded successive emanations of the spiritual third dimension. The soul preceded successive emanations of spiritual third density beings, more or less elevated according to their particular status of ascent or descent in the grand scale of the spiritual 3D kingdom. What it's saying here is basically we're in a reincarnation cycle. This is where some of you may have heard me mention this book before, The Gospel of the Holy 12. It's a book which is really a scripture. It's not really even a book. It's The Gospel of the Holy 12 with 12 spelled out, T-W-E-L-V-E. There's a few of them variations, but it's not really the Gospel of the Holy 12. But when Yeshua was 12 years old, he disappeared from the modern day Bible. Where did he go? Okay, that's right. He went to India. He went to Tibet. He went to Egypt. So if you go to Egypt, make sure you go to Coptic Cairo. Okay? Coptic Cairo. There's a house